Well, good day, folks, and welcome back to The Secret Solve. The Secret Solve is a program that I put on that looks at this book, The Secret, by Byron Priess, and we look at the images and try to come up with what was going on in this. And today I tried to explain a little further the ideas I have about Florida. Now, you may have seen my previous presentation where I wanted to use the prime meridian marker in Tallahassee based upon the flag, sticking in the image. But what I've done is I've revised my way of thinking about this to look at just images in the back of the book. And I, in my own humble opinion, believe that Perard put together the backup drawings for The Secret, and that he had two artists working on this project. He didn't know which one he wanted to use, and then he chose the one that was the best. And thanks for joining, Jeff. Good to see you. I'm going to expound upon those ideas that I had concerning this. So, first of all, you have the space shuttle in the background. I apologize all the notes I've got on my pages. But then you have this guy right here, not that one, the other hand. This I'm moving the wrong fingers. Anyway, the one that's got the tie on it. That, I believe, is Jackie Gleason from the Honeymooners. Okay? And you got the space shuttle in the background. And then you've got, that is definitely bananas. That's bananas. So stylistically, if you look at this and you've got Cape Canaveral, if you've got, wrong hand, if you've got Cape Canaveral over here, and then you've got Gleason down here, and then in this circle, in that circle there, you have a sign of some sort sitting next to the water. So I've circled it at this point. And so if you look at Cape Canaveral and the Titusville area, you have a community by the name of Gleason, if you will. But not only that, Jackie Gleason would be somebody that starred in the Honeymooners. And if you want to go further with this, you can have the whole Fly Me to the Moon. So I'm just going to call this the Fly Me to the Moon presentation for a solve that will end in Sands Point. Well, the interesting thing about Titusville, Florida, is that it was originally named Sand Point. And the reason it was changed to Titusville is because there was this famous, not famous, but there was a game of dominoes played. And the winner of the game of dominoes was going to get to decide what the name of Sand Point would be. Because apparently they wanted to change the name. And it was the guy by the name of Titus that won this game. So they ended up changing it to Titusville. So since we're talking about name changes, so after the assassination of John F. Kennedy, not more than a few days later on Thanksgiving, President Johnson, at the behest of Jacqueline Kennedy, came forward and suggested that since Kennedy started a project to put a man on the moon, and that flight originated from the spot, that perhaps they should change the name of Cape Canaveral to Kennedy, Cape Kennedy. And this happened, and the community just didn't like it at all. And after 20 years as being known as Cape Kennedy, the city historically got its name back to Cape Canaveral. Oh, you're thinking, why is any of this important? Cape Canaveral is actually the third oldest named spot in the United States. The third oldest named point of reference of the Americas is Cape Canaveral. It appears way back based upon Spanish exploration in the 1600s. Okay, so there's your history lesson for today. So anyway, in working through this image, I'm trying to figure out what is actually on that particular sign. And I think that sign is actually maybe next to a statue in Sands Park called, because the current sign says purity on it. And if it says purity, then this is a direct link to the puzzle in Boston. But anyway, it then has some phrases on it that refer to the having safe travel, if you will. Okay, well, let's just get into some of the things that I've looked up here. Um, so let's just look around Cape Canaveral, look around Sandpoint. Basically, I've got a map open. I'm going to just look at Cape Canaveral a little bit. Um, so if you look at where the rocket was launched, you've got the whole entire Space Center. This is where the shuttle landing facility is, is on the whole island of this. Well, directly adjacent to where the NASA shuttle facility is Sandpoint Park. So if you were sitting at Sandpoint Park, you could look across the Indian River and get a really nice view of the activities over there when things launch. And in fact, there is a Sandpoint Park viewing location that is just for this very purpose. You notice I might have mentioned the community of um, the community of Gleason. Gleason is the community directly to the south of this park. It's called, well, Kings Row is first, and then you've got Gleason's. But then you have the Titusville, and then you have the Brian Heller Estates, and you have Sandpoint and the Sandpoint Marina. All right, so if you go down here and you click on the Sandpoint Park, if you will, you will get a lot of photographs. Okay, there's 4,196 photos of Sandpoint Park. Let's start clicking through a few of those. So you've got gazebos. The second one I see is a swing set. Then there's this bridge. There's a sunset. Now start looking at the next picture. I see these straight-looking trees that look like the tree in the image from the Palancar drawing. And about the fourth or fifth one down, I get this statue of of Neptune, excuse me. So I get this Neptune statue, and I'm looking at this Neptune statue, and I'm going, that's kind of an interesting statue. And I see all these trees behind it that I think look like the palmetto trees. And then I start clicking through here, and I click through here, and I see more and more palmetto trees and rocks. So if you just go look at some of these pictures, you'll eventually get to one that has this brackish. Oh, and by the way, look at the back of the Neptune, if you will. Just look at the back of the Neptune and how that sheet is draped over the image figure. And then you'll, if you keep going through here, there's lots and lots of pictures. But eventually, you'll see one that has that water fountain. And if you look at the water fountain that's in the Sandpoint Park, and you can notice that there's brackish water. And what I mean by brackish water is that green hue appearance that occurs on the top of water. And if you go back to the image and you go look at the rock and the tree, you'll see that there's some brackish water in that. And I'm thinking to myself, well, this kind of looks like the type of water that's in that image. And so I'm going, well, that makes a little sense. There's your train. In one of these pictures, there's a little train. So anyway, I think that there's quite possibly a connection to this Neptune statue. And here's why. So when you actually go to the verses in the puzzle and you use the correct verse, of all the romance told, men of tales and tunes. Okay, well, tales and tunes, what if it's Neptune? What if they're trying to get you to the Neptune? Now, okay, well, what are the songs? Neptune Records was a recording studio in Newark, New Jersey that was in business, and it was in basically producing doo-wop. And this may, in fact, now be where we can put some of Overton Lloyd's touches on The Secret, if you consider that that is part of it. Men of tales and tunes, cruel and bold, seen here by the eyes of old. Well, if you look stylistically at all of the different images, the one that has an old face in it, a rock structured face, if you will, is the Florida image. Moreover, it has a period correct old writer on it. Okay. So, the young boy, the lion, the armor is not period correct for anything that would be young. So, the only image figure that you can really tie to oldness and tunes is going to be your Florida figure with the old rider on it. My eyes stand and listen to the birds. Okay. The Audubon is near. The whole entire Cape Canaveral complex was basically some private residences and national parks that got converted over to a space center because at this parallel or at this particular distance from the equator, rocket ships are more easily propelled. And I'm sure Werner von Browning could give you some insight into how this actually is true and that they chose this location because of its proximity. Uh, so hearken to the words freedom at the birth of the century or May 1913. Okay, so some people have matched May 1913 to the Wright brothers' flight. And I will give them that that is probably correct. But who accomplished more when it comes to flight? Would you rank the accomplishments of the Wright brothers over the accomplishments of the Apollo astronauts when it comes to flight? Having a plane at Kitty Hawk fly just a few meters, yards, compared to having in the 1960s and 70s, 60s primarily, an effort to achieve flight that goes to the moon. And we're talking about a book that was written in 1980. Is the reference to flight that's most relevant going to be that of the Wright brothers? Or is it going to be of the astronauts who flew to the moon? Fly me to the moon. Oh, a little Frank Sinatra. I'm feeling it right now. So let's just say that that's true. Edwin and Edwina named after him. Now you're using some African American reference to use Edwin and Edwina. I like to use a more interesting connection, and that is to two people that were assassinated, Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy, and both were presidents. And if you're talking about the Kennedy Space Center, why not look at Edwina Booth and Edwin Booth, descendants of the famous Booth family, who in Washington, or I believe was where this happened. The assassination, was it in Washington? 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 Was it in Washington? I think it was. I'm not 100% sure. Or on the 8th, a scene where law defended. Okay, so I think this actually refers to the Lafayette and Lafayette's relationship to where the prime meridian marker is located. And so I actually think this has to do more with the latitude and longitude coordinate of Florida being important to achieve flight and rocketry. And this was all talked about in the story by Werner von Browning. Basic says these cosmic creatures enjoy nothing more than the science of rocketry, from Cape Canaveral to Santa Barbara. The Werner von Browning can be found conducting his own schedule of independent experiments on spacecraft. What would happen if only one engine fired? What would happen if the hose gets connected where the hose is supposed to go? Is this material fireproof? Well, so over in the thing, you've got the guy who's got a matchstick in his hand. And I'm now looking at the matchstick, and I think it's probably more or less a rocket, possibly. I don't know. Could be a piece of pizza too, but anyway. But here it starts talking about they're about to photograph Venus, removing solar panels from space shuttles. We're talking directly about the space shuttle right now. So, anyway, I like this part of this in relationship. It talks about beekeeping. I think beekeeping is probably important to pollination. Pollination is probably important to growing oranges. Oranges are important to Florida. This whole area, the Indian River, has Florida orange. And the Florida orange growers banded together in like 1978 or 79 and started this Florida Pure Orange Juice campaign. And you can go watch TV ads and that type of thing. And one of the people that got involved with this was they hired, I believe, Anita Bryant. And Anita Bryant is referenced by proxy in one of the stories in the back of the book. And so I like that. So there's going to be some more obscure references here that I'm going to talk about for this area. So I'm going to go back to the sand point. Again, you can look at all the pictures. You can move around and get the aerial view. Now, any of the monuments that are in the Harbor Point Commons were not there when the treasure was buried or put in place. So you almost have to ignore that whole entire spacewalk part of the park. So I'm going to talk about Baby Washington. Baby Washington, or Justine Washington, was probably one of the biggest person who performed on the Neptune Records label. Okay, and so Neptune Records was this company and that basically put out. So Donald Shaw was one of the people that was involved with this. And so Neptune Records was a record label founded in Philadelphia by Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff. The label distributed by Chess Records. Chess. Holy cow! How many board game things can we have in these images? And Chess Records was an American record company established in 1950 in Chicago. It specialized in blues and rhythm and blues. It was a successor to Aristocrat Records, founded in 1947. So this is where you get your jazz, your soul, etc. Neptune featured releases by artists such as Jeanette Baby Washington, the OJs, and the 3 Degrees, and by Billy Paul. So the biggest hit of the labels was the release One Night Affair, like Teardrops and Moonlight. One Night Affair. Okay, so between two arms extended below the bar that binds, beside the long palm's shadow. Okay, so let's just look at the verse and then let's compare it to all the images. What image could you actually match this to that has a palm tree in it? I'm not trying to make this difficult for you. It's the one for Florida. So I don't know why you're using this of the Romance Retold verse for anywhere other than the image that has a palm tree in it. But anyway, embedded in the sand. Waits fair remuneration. Remuneration. Fly me to the moon. Okay? Fly me to the moon. White House close at hand. Okay, well, it seems like there is some puzzles that actually have a reference to the street. And the street that is adjacent to Sandpoint Park at the Westland Boatyard and Marina is Washington. So if you take the Washington information and add that to where you need to be, you're basically looking at this little peninsula where you could find the Neptune guy and the sign, in my opinion. White House close at hand. When somebody says the White House, the first thing you probably think of is Washington. So anyway, I think that that is what I wanted to say about that. Neptune Records, Baby Washington, the other Washington connection. I don't know. I came up with a link to Edward Casey, and he's this clairvoyant who claimed to speak with his higher self while in a trance-like state. He was called the sleeping prophet, and I don't know how I got to this guy, and he probably doesn't have anything to do with the puzzle, but Casey told biographer Thomas Sugru, and he was an American writer, There Is a River. Okay, so if you want to put a river in your solve, you can pretty much put this guy in your story. So There Is a River by Thomas Sugru. The reason I say that is because the people that are punking you in The Secret will actually take you to the location of that cask. So Sugru, he got rare from an arthritic disease, and it was innovatively treated in a clinic for weeks. He left it as a dying person with few weeks to live. Oh my God, I need to find a fountain of youth. If I can only find a fountain of youth. After seeking relief for his condition in Florida, Sugru moved to Virginia Beach in June 1939 and lived at the Casey's home until October of 41. With Hugh Casey as his nurse, he received readings from Edward Casey and treatments for his condition. Okay, so here we have a guy that went to Florida seeking a fountain of youth. He died at age 45 in 1953 during a hip replacement meant to help him walk again. Well, I guess not. All right, so there's a Sugru monument out in Dodge City. Not for this Sugru, but from another one. And I'm going to point out why these people are punking you when I show you the Valkyrie. But before I go to the Valkyrie, I've got the tab labeled Valleys of Neptune. Valleys of Neptune was a song that Jimi Hendrix had produced in 1969. It was probably the most sought after bootleg tape ever. It finally made itself to release in like 2010. But here you have the album Valleys of Neptune. It was well known that this was the title that Hendrix had for this album. And so Valleys of Neptune was originated because of Jimi Hendrix had been reading Edward Casey and Edward Casey's stories of the mystical Isle of Atlantis. Okay, so I'm going back to the original drawing by Palancar, and you have this rock in the water, but you also have this underground city under that rock. And so why is there an underground portion of that rock unless there's some deep reference to Atlantis? Okay, there's all these moons and these round objects and these images and stuff. And just as Neptune, originally the fourth largest planet in the solar system, was confused as being a star, Instead, it was eventually determined to be a giant planet. And in fact, it's 17 times the size of the Earth. So I'm wondering, is the guy in the image looking up at Neptune? Uh, I don't know, but it's a big old hunk of snow. And there's a picture here of these little ants rolling a large snowball off of the roof onto Mr. Frost. So in the Jack B. Nimbus, what if Jupiter's Platypus? What if the biggest threat to the Indian River area is a frost, a Jack Frost? And in fact, historically, there have been many instances where frost has wiped out the whole entire Florida orange orange crop. And so, if that round ball of snow is in anywhere a reference to the Neptune planet. My next two favorite people are Ethel Merman and Ernest Borgnine. And Ethel Merman, or Ethel Agnes Zimmerman, as she was originally called, was, I think, she was in Rose's Turn. Anyway, you can read about her. Her maternal mother's house was in Astoria, Queens. She was the only child. Her father was Edward Zimmerman, and his aunt was Edwina Zimmerman. No, I just made that part up. But anyway, he went to William Cullen Bryant. She went to William. But anyway, she is interesting. But where she intersects and where I think she is that I think Ethel Merman actually is the lady that's the giant lady in the paper towel, the one with the paper towels, because she famously endorsed the paper towel, and there were some ads of her, etc. So, but she intersects with Ernest Borgnine, and Ernest Borgnine, I think, is in the book. That big nose of his. I don't know where it's at. But anyway, they intersect because they got married. They were only married for 40 days. She was married and divorced 4 times. This is just as many times as Ernest Borgnine, by the way. And anyway, in a radio interview, Merman said of her numerous marriages, we all make mistakes. That's why they put rubbers on pencils. And that's what I did. I made a few Lulus. In her 78 biographer, Merman, the chapter titled My Marriage, Ernest Borgnine, consists of 1 blank page. As an homage to this, I think the artist of The Secret included in the back of the book 1 blank page. Well, actually, they put 2 in there. But anyway, she was had a brash demeanor. She told vulgar stories at public parties. For instance, once she shouted a dirty joke across the room at Jose Ferrer during a formal reception. She was a guest appearance at the Loretta Young show. Merman exclaimed, "Where the hell does this go?" Young, who was a devout Catholic, advanced towards Merman, waving an empty coffee can, saying, "Miss Merman, you said the H word. That'll be 25 cents. To which Merman replied, "Tell me, Loretta, how much will it cost me to tell you to go fuck yourself?" Oh, God dang. I'm just telling you, you guys need to study your history because there's so many fun things in here. Oh, in politics, Merman, a lifetime Republican, was a frequent guest of Eisenhower at the White House. The White House was closest. The closest house is Washington. Eisenhower's in the back of the book. She was noted as saying, Eisenhower was my war hero and the president I admire and respect most. On January 20th, she performed Everything's Coming Up Roses at the inauguration of Ronald Reagan. She had previously sung the song at the inaugural gala for John F. Kennedy, but it was never broadcast. So here we may have Ethel Merman being the left wing sylph and the right wing trog because she sang the same song at a Republican and a Democratic event. Uh, okay. Uh, I like Ethel Merman. I think she's really good for one of these characters. Ernest Borgnine. So Ernest Borgnine, if you look at Ernest Borgnine and you look at his Cheshire cat smile, you can't help but look at one of the images in the back of the book and see those teeth. Those teeth, those Ernest Borgnine teeth are in the back of the book. And good old Hermes Ephron Borgnino, his real name, has this Cheshire cat grin. He was in Corsair, China Corsair, Here to Eternity, a bunch of stuff. It really doesn't matter except for the fact that I think that old Ernest Borgnine, his teeth are in some of those images in the back, in the smiling, in the smile of that one doll. So I think the one doll is. But if you look at Ernest Borgnine, he had a fairly distinct nose as well. And anyway, the Navy thing is the one that I like there. The Neptune Factor, also known as the Neptune Disaster, was a 73 science fiction film. This is the kind of thing that I think old Byron actually liked, the science fiction-y stuff. But anyway, it's about some oceanauts, and Mac McKay was played by Ernest Borgnine in this movie. So I don't know. It's Sandy Howard, a film producer from the United States, brought the idea of Neptune Factor to David Permuller and Harold Greenberg, and I guess the movie has a subtitle, An Underwater Odyssey. The film was shot in Canada. Okay, I don't think that one's terribly. So Cape Canaveral itself, I mentioned the name change. It used to be called Artesia, the rocket launch site. Private English privateer John Hawkins and his journalist John Spark gave an account of their landing at Cape Canaveral in the 16th century. Pedro Mendez was wrecked off the coast of Cape Canaveral and encountered the AIS Indians, the Ayas Indians. From 1605, the Spanish governor of Florida, Pedro de Ibarra, sent Alvaro Mexia on a diplomatic mission to the nation. The Cape Canaveral Lighthouse was completed in 1848. There was a big wall of water in 1885. Port Canaveral. Okay, I already talked about the story where they changed the name. What else do I have? Okay. So earlier I talked about the Valkyrie in the 13th puzzle, and where they got the idea for the Valkyrie is because they actually know a little bit more than they're telling you. And so one of the Valkyries is the community of Grant Valkyrie that was incorporated in July of, of well, anyway, the two towns were combined. But anyway, you have this Valkyrie in Florida that started as part of the secret, the treasure hunt 13th cast. So here's your Valkyrie for you. And I showed you your Shugru earlier. Uh, there's an index of articles in the Indian River Journal, and this is a good source. It's basically at the brevoortflorida.gov website, and this will give you information that came from the Indian River Journal, and it's indexed, and it gives you a lot of information about people of that particular area. Uh, there's also another Neptune called the Nashville R&B, the Neptunes, which were Hal Hardy, P.W. Cannon, and uh, and E. Mark Wendell, but I don't think that one uh, works too much. Uh, so I have a 1980s playing it now. You probably can't hear that. So anyway, uh, so the Pure Food and Drug Act, uh, and it passed in 1906, also known as Dr. Wiley's Law. So this might be your law defended. Uh, Maybe a slight bit of a stretch to use it in this particular sense. Um, in mythology, Neptune is a Greek god, and it's the god of fresh water and the sea. Oh, well, that makes sense. Maybe that's why they put that statue out there by the water and the sea. Uh, there is also a place called the White Sands Buddhist Center, and they have these giant Buddha statues. And I don't know when this was put in. So Apollo, since that was the name of one of the, isn't it interesting that all of these rocket launch early ones had the names of these Greeks like Apollo, Gemini, and Pender, and okay, all right, I'm going to stop on the Greek cultural references to the naming of the rockets. Uh, I think I made my point. Marcus Junius Brutus, and I don't think this is it, but Edwina Booth Grossman was an American writer and daughter of Shakespearean actor Edwin Booth. In 1984, she published the book Edwin Booth, Recollections by His Daughter, Edwin Booth Grossman, and letters to her and his friends in the effort to protect her father's legacy. Well, quite the legacy it is. Uh, okay. Um, Edwin Booth married banker Ignaeus R. Grossman, sometimes called the Bowman. No, no, sorry, it's the Crossman. They had two children, uh, Clarence Edwin Booth Grossman, who became an artist, and Mildred Booth Grossman. Grossman's granddaughter, Edwina Booth Waterbury, eventually married actor Robert H. Cutting. Edwin and Edwina, a better reference than any of the other Edwin and Edwina references that I've seen by anybody else in the secret community. Thank you very much. What else do I have? So the Colonel Henry Theodore Titus. And this is a long article that you can read at nbbd.com/go/do/history/mini Titus/index. And this is in the Titusville, Florida area community guide, places to go and things to do. The saga of Colonel Henry Theodore Titus, told by his youngest daughter, Minnie Titus Enzi, to Fedora Enzi Gray of Miami. Okay, if you read this, you'll get the whole entire story about Mr. Titus. Daddy was a northern man and never owned a slave in his life, but he espoused the Southern cause and went to Kansas with a number of Southern men. I think about 1856. My mother went also, and they were in the thick of things there. I remember hearing my father tell of having John Brown's son as prisoners and of feeling sorry for men and letting them ride mules unbound. upon their promise not to try to escape. But the first chance they got, off they were. He also told an officer coming in and spitting on him as he was lying on the floor wounded. He was wounded by a mini ball, which came out just before he died in a large abscess. It was while in Kansas, his rheumatic condition made his first appearance, which was finally to cripple him and cause him death at age 59. His thumb was never shot off, as some have said. So they got the mini ball to come out basically before he died because he had this little abscess. Anyway, he was in Florida during the Civil War and served with his father-in-law, Colonel Hopkins, the latter being in command of the 4th Florida Regiment, stationed on the coast. So after the war, while staying in Madison, Florida, he met and established a friendship with Judge Payne. Okay, well, this gets a little tedious. If you want to read the whole article about his days. He sailed to the Indian River, enjoying the beautiful, though wild country and the clear water of the inland waterway. Then the water was very clear, and the beaches were of snowy white sand, and the green foliage of the trees on either side made the blue sky above, and the ever-changing cloud formations made, indeed, a wonderful picture to northern eyes. Many birds were in evidence, too. The osprey, or fishhawks, and the bald eagle with numerous heron, besides others unknown to us. And the water held many pieces of fish, many of them we had never seen before. Early settlers were sparsely scattered, braving the hardships of pioneer life with fortitude and courage, dwelling in their log houses, rearing their children with few advantages such as city offers, but teaching them self-reliance with love for primary things of life. Okay, so that's a description of that uh, area in that time. Captain Lund, an old pioneer, owned the boat line and later on ran a steamer down to Salt Lake once a week. So there's actually a portion of Florida that's called Salt Lake. And maybe all the references in the back of the book to Salt Lake are actually just to have us confirm the Salt Lake here. He was well known and well liked by all for his integrity and kindly ways. On one arrival at Salt Lake, we were met by mule teams, and the wagons were driven out into the water on the boats. So my mother, first exclamation on reaching her new home was, "Look at the houses! The white one closest." However, she soon adjusted herself to change from the comforts of city life and found the houses clean and more comfortable than she had first expected. Well, anyway, I'm just not going to continue. But if you go on and read the story, it's how it tells about how Titusville got named. It goes on and tells about Mrs. Rawlings and a hurricane and the palmettos. More information about the Salt Lake. I remember there was a cedar hammock across Banana Creek on the peninsula, on the north side of the creek. Daddy gave employment to many in clearing out the land and laying out the town, building houses, etc. He was a lover of beauty, and Titusville still had wide streets with the beautiful shade trees, etc. My aunts would visit us from New York, and friends also came and brought their horses and dogs and tents to hunt and fish. Okay. So anyway, this lady eloquently tells her story about uh, the saga. So Colonel Edward Hopkins, the father-in-law, law defended, he was the Confederate States Army during the Civil War. Uh, so you can imagine how interesting this was with Edward D. Hopkins uh, being in the Confederate State Army. Uh, he was a he was a wealthy planter, and the Mary Hopkins Titus, who was married to Henry Theodore Titus. the founder of the community. So Henry Titus, I think I already talked about him. Titusville, Florida. If you just look up the wiki on it, you've got the Indian references to it. You've got the Sandpoint story. John James Audubon. Again, you can read about Audubon and okay, so I mentioned Jackie Gleason earlier. And Jackie Gleason, I think's main reference here is the Gleason community, but it also could be a reference to the Honeymooners. Fly me to the moon. But interestingly enough, Jackie Gleason was infatuated with aliens. And in fact, he was so infatuated with outer space, he built a house in upstate New York. And all you have to do is Google Jackie Gleason's UFO-inspired upstate New York spaceship house. And you can take a marvelous tour of Jackie Gleason's fascination with the extraterrestrial. John Herbert Gleason, known as Jackie, was an actor. He's known as the Great One. He grew up in Brooklyn. His notable film roles were Minnesota Fats and The Hustler. Why in the back of the book do you have a guy playing pool? Do we just randomly, hey, Ben, Addison, come here. I need you to take one of Joe Ellen's dolls. I want you to take it out to a pool parlor. I want you to put some balls on the table, and then I want you to have that guy shooting pool. Okay, I can do that for you. Okay, why would law defend? Why would we have a place that law defended? Well, Jackie Gleason ended up getting a role as Buford T. Justice. And this is kind of where I go into did they really just do that? Did they just use a reference to something that was just happening? Okay, so go back to the image figure, and you've got basically, let's just call him Jackie Gleason. And he's in this image, and he's got his deputy with him, right? He's either got a badge pinned on his chest, or he's got a pen holder. He's wearing a tie, and he's got a belt on. It looks like he might be Buford T. Justice. Buford T. Justice is basically a character in the plot of the movie Smoking the Bandit. Now, you don't realize how big the movie Smoking the Bandit was, unless you were growing up in 1976, 77. Smoking the Bandit was the second highest grossing domestic film in 1977. Smoking the Bandit was the second highest grossing film in 1977. And it's about bootlegging Coors beer. And the local legend Bo Bandit Darville is at a truck rodeo at Lakewood Fairgrounds. And he's offered money to go get some beer in a Pontiac Trans Am. And the guy chasing after him in all of these scenes is our friend Buford T. Justice. The bandits attract more police attention across Dixie as Cletus barrels on towards Atlanta with the contraband beer. Okay, so the truck is being carried by this character by the name of Cletus. Okay. Anyway, at the end of the movie, the deputy by the name is Enos. But instead of taking the payoff, the bandit accepted a double or Nothing offer from Little Enos a challenge to run up to Boston and bring back some clam chowder in 18 hours. They quickly escaped in one of Big Enos's 13 Cadillacs as police flooded the racetrack. There's your racetrack. You people in Canada that think there's one up there, there's your racetrack. It has to do with Dixie and all of this Buford T. Justice stuff. Okay. All right. I'm having fun with the whole. When he was 19, his mother died of sepsis from a large neck carbuncle that young Jackie had tried to lance. Okay, so one guy did not die of a bullet that had a carbuncle, but this guy unfortunately was unable to lance it properly. He had nowhere to go and 36 cents to his name. The family of his girlfriend, Julie Dennehy, offered to take him in. Gleason, however, was headstrong and insisted that he was going into the heart of the city. His friend Birch. How many birch trees are there? Anyway, 3. You got to pass 3. And then on the 4th, at its foot. Okay, whatever. He shared a room with another comedian. Oh, here's your joke fiend, our friend. Birch also told him in a week-long gig at Reading, Pennsylvania. So he got a gig there. He worked in New York, did some early television. But The Honeymooners is the show that made him famous. And here he starred with Audrey Meadows, who was Alice. I don't really need to give you too much more about that. Throughout the 50s and 60s, and he had a musical career with some mood music on Capitol Records. So here's some more tunes. His first album, Music for Lovers Only, still holds the record for the longest stay on Billboard's top 10 charts, 153 weeks. I think Tay-Tay probably has broken that record. But just remember, Jackie Gleason, Tunes and Tales, Music for Lovers Only, held the record for the longest stay on the Billboard top 10 chart, 153 weeks. And his first 10 albums sold over 1 million copies each. At one time, Gleason held the record for charting the most #1 albums on the Billboard 200. This obviously probably has been shattered by Elvis Presley and Tay-Tay. Gleason could not read or write music. He was said to have conceived melodies in his head and described them vocally to assistants who transcribed them into musical notes. Melancholy Serenade and the You're My Greatest Love from the Honeymooners are 2 of these. So there's your tunes. There's your tunes right there. The guy that held at one point in time, he had the record for the longest stay on the Billboard top 10 charts at 153 weeks. How many weeks are in a year? How many weeks are in a year? So Gleason's record was on the Billboard top 10 for nearly 3 years. Tay-Tay, has your record been on the Billboard top 10 charts that long? Don't think so. So if you're doubting this, okay. In addition to his salary and royalties, CBS paid for Gleason's Peekskill, New York mansion called the Round Rock Hill. Here's another reference to Peekskill. Eventually, Gleason became a Floridian, if you will. And they tried to revise the Honeymooner show, but Gleason and Lucille Ball was in a TV special, Tea for Two, Two for Tea, and that was in 1975. So here's your reference that gets you to Buford T. Justice, the Florida Connection, and then the lady who's on the front cover of the book, Miss Lucille Ball. Okay, so they tried to revise the honeymooners at one point in time. Uh, just trying to point out the most important parts of here. Uh, so I think Burt Reynolds is actually mentioned in the back of the book so that you can put Reynolds together with Gleason. Gleason loved golf, played a lot of golf, and if you look at the wiki on Gleason, you can see him playing golf with President Gerald Ford. So you've got that. Gleason was interested in the paranormal, reading many books on the topic as well as books on parapsychology and UFOs. Okay, now I did mention this guy earlier who was related to the uh, album put out by Jimi Hendrix, and the album about uh, Neptune was inspired by a Casey guy book on paranormal phenomenon. And I don't want to do a disappearing act on you. According to writer Larry Holcomb, Gleason's interest in UFOs allegedly prompted President Richard Nixon to share information with him to disclose some UFO data publicly. Oh my! Richard Nixon and Jackie Gleason in a golf cart with an audience in February 1973. I always love it when you can put him with Nixon, because we've seen Nixon in the back of the book a number of times. In as early as 52, the Jackie Gleason show captured the Saturday night for CBS. He smoked 6 packs of cigarettes a day, but he never smoked on the honeymooners. Jackie Gleason, you, my friend, are a filthy hobbit. 6 packs? That's a lot of cigarettes to be a filthy hobbit. He delivered a performance as an infirm, acerbic, and somewhat Archie Bunker-like character in the Tom Hanks comedy Nothing in Common, but that happened in 1986. He died in 87 in his Florida home. Okay, so there's your information. There's your Gleason. There's your honeymooners. And maybe if Byron really liked the honeymooners, maybe go to 328 Chauncey Street in Brooklyn and see what's around there, because maybe Byron just put it there. Cocoa, Florida. I don't know if there's any direct reference to chocolate squares in the back of the book, or if you can see chocolate squares in any of these images, or even if the drawing itself is just broken up pieces of chocolate. There is a lot of dark chocolate in this book. I'm having trouble explaining the flag and the horse and rider, other than the fact that there is some Juan Ponce de Leon reference to the Titusville, Cocoa beach area. So there is some of that. But let's just say that if that swollen parts on the leg is actually Mr. Titus, instead of it being once Ponce de Leon, then maybe there's something to that. Okay, what else do I have? The Christofouli family is basically owned most of the land on the Merritt Island at the time, and they were vegetable farmers, etc. There's a Christofouli tower, but it's not in a park. But I just wanted to bring up John Christofouli because he married Lucille. Lucy! And they had 3 children: Vicky, Wilma, Jackie, Lucille, and Donna, Lucille. But the fact that the whole area where Cape Canaveral, Merritt Island, was owned by the Christofouli family, we can't. And they were home builders, carpenters, etc. Um, and so you can read an article about the Christopheles and Space Coast living. All right, so there's an interesting thing that did I save it? Don't know if I saved this one. Okay, so in the back of the book they have um, uh, this computer, and back when computers were originally started out, you had to basically buy a kit and assemble your own computer. Oh, I know that's going to shock all the younger people listening. But anyway, there was computer magazines that popped up across the country that had advertisements from companies that would provide you the circuit boards, the component parts, and everything to build a computer. And the most known one was actually published out of Titusville, Florida. And so, if you take the magazine references and you tie that to this picture of the computer with so I always tried to figure out, I was trying to figure out in this image of the glitches, why with the computer and the keyboard and the terminal does the person have to have a screwdriver that looks like a rocket? And now that I think about it more, it's because in the Perard drawing with the rocket held screwdriver and the keyboard and the computer, they're just trying to make the point that you had to assemble, if you will, your computer. Okay, so that was in the glitches section. So we already talked about the loyal order of the moose, and I always like it when I can find some sort of lodge or uh, something like that. And I thought that the loyal order of the moose was located right in this area, or maybe it was something else. There's a 7-Eleven and a Winn-Dixie and a KFC if you like to go down here. It's all right there. But I swore. Uh, okay, well, you'll have to just look at the area. I'm not over here on the Project Mercury tribute or on that side of the park because I think it has to do with Neptune and the tales and tunes of old. So if you work through the verse and you like the Washington Street reference I made, if you like the fact that the only image that has a palm tree in it is this one, if you like my explanation of the 1812 and flight and the discussion I had on the importance of flight, if you combine that with the Werner van Braune information concerning rocketry and the building of rockets and those types of things, and you just use this one image, I think you can maybe look at Cape Canaveral, Titusville, this general area as being important to perhaps the actual real solve for this. And maybe we've been looking at this one wrong and up the coast too far. And if you focus your efforts down here by the Canaveral, how many capes are there in this image? Are in these images, by the way? There's a cape. There's a cape. There's another cape. There's so many cape figures in this that you wonder, well, was he trying to tell a story about the capes? So I'm going to see if anybody's joined in. If I'm up to 1 hour, that's about all I wanted to do. Amy Gwen, hey, good to see you. Jeff, nice to have you along for the ride. But anyway, I think that they've been focusing their efforts on finding this. And if you look at page 173, you've got another Dixie Pixie. And it looks like the guy flying there could be Buford T. Justice. And you notice how you have this water and then you've got this grass, and it's so similar. It's so similar then to the image that's 2 pages further in the book, where you have the grass, the space shuttle, and you in the foreground. If you compare the two images and you see that little island, that rock in the island type of thing, you have to wonder if it was like, hey, Ben, can you find a place on one of your trips to Florida where you can photograph in the grass that doll with the hat on it? Uh, could you do that for me? Sure, sure, I'll do that for you. You know, I can make that picture. And then I don't know who did this microphone drawing, the Perard, but when Perard drew that microphone, he made it look like and microphones in a way look like rockets. But if you look at the shading on page 177, when you turn that upside down, in the white area, don't you have what looks like the space shuttle or a rocket inside the rocket in the white relief? Okay, do I have anything else? Oh, I don't think so. All right, well, that's going to conclude today's presentation on The Secret by Byron Priess and the potential solve location in Sand Point in Florida. I will add that if you look at on page 133 in the Dawn Fawn, uh, that does kind of look like an alien head that's juggling on top of the ball holding the American flag. And that does look like a flying saucer over there. And maybe these two officers in front of the police car are Buford. Well, no, they don't look anything like Buford T. Justice and Cletus or whoever. Oh, what was the other character's name in Smoking the Bandit? Was it Titus? Was it Titus? Oh, I gotta look that up now. Now I've got myself interested. Um, who was that? Who was that? Uh, Characters in Smoking the Bandit. I should know this by now. If it was Titus, okay, so you've got Cletus. It's not really Titus. You got Buford T. Justice. You got Little Enos. You got Big Enos. You got Little Beaver. And you got the Bandit. Okay, sorry, no Titus. No. But one thing about Titus is that Titus is actually, I think, a reference to God or something. Uh, Maybe not. Who is Titus? Oh, Titus. If you look at I actually think it's below the tit of Neptune. Um, Titus commanded a Roman legion in Judea. He led a campaign that culminated in the capture and destruction of Jerusalem. Titus became the Roman emperor in 79. He constructed the Flavian Amphitheater, better known as the Colosseum. It opened with ceremonies lasting more than 100 days. Well, the birth of the century, 70 CE. Maybe that's your birth of the century right there. Could be. Maybe we need to go to the Colosseum. Oh, God, no! Please! They have a mention of Colosseum in one of the verses. Oh, Lord. God, we can't mention Colosseum in we can't mention Colosseum in one of the verses, right? And the Flavian Amphitheater. And here we have another leader of armies, right? I think this goes along with my solve for the Fort Knox, the Flavian Amphitheater, better known as the Colosseum. Oh, you guys in Boston, you wanted to use the Colosseum in Boston? I want to use it for Titus. I think it makes more sense here with Titus and the Colosseum, the real Colosseum, by the way, not some pseudo made up building in Boston. I like using it here. The Colosseum. There you go. All right. Anybody, any more comments? Let me look. Any more comments? Do you have any plans of going boots on the ground to find a cask? Well, most of these are too far away, but I actually do have plans to go find one, dig one up, and bring it back. And I was going to do my solve for the Tribute, which I've already solved, by the way. And they're just fucking with you. The people are fucking with you. They throw in Valkyrie because Valkyrie's in Florida. They throw in this Shugru guy because he wrote this book about the clairvoyant. Gleason was interested in aliens and clairvoyancy. Gleason's is the neighborhood there. He was a Florida resident. There's a picture of the space shuttle Columbia. The thing about the space shuttle Columbia that makes it specific is that after the book was published, there was, up until the point of the book's publishing, the space shuttle had not launched, and it's here in the book. So it's recent history, 79, 80. The plans for it, granted, had started. The space shuttle is not in the state of construction. It's in the state that it was in when it was launched. And so that puts this in a very, very, very narrow window of the authors and artists putting out the book and something that they pictured in the book. It puts it in a very narrow window. There's another image in the book that just bugs the shit out of me. And it's the picture of either the Space Needle or the Space Needle structure that's in a number of different places, Las Vegas. But in this book, there is actually the Space Needle. And what I mean by the Space Needle is basically a spire at the top with something round going on. And it bugs the hell out of me that I can't figure out why they have it in the book. And it's not in any of the cities that they're claiming they're having a cask located in. And I never figured this one out. But to answer your question, yeah, I have a solve. And as soon as the weather clears, I'm going to go give it a shot. But tomorrow I probably will show you the secret, the solve location for so stylistically, this image here, has a rock behind a couple of bars that bind. And this is why I initially kind of thought, hey, it's the prime meridian marker. But I'm looking at that, and I'm looking at the Sands Park, and they have a lined street that looks like that. And the only place you're going to find the lined streets that look like that are either in Florida or Southern California. And so the sweat sills, and it could be both. It could be both that this relates to. But the only two puzzles that you can possibly have a little thing. But if you can find in this, hey Ben, what are you doing today? No, not a whole lot. Hey, when you're in Florida, could you go find a place where there's a street lamp and there's like some rocks that are staggered along like a fence? And if you could capture a picture of some people jogging in the background, that'd be great too. Okay, I'll do that on my next trip down there. And the genesis of the picture is then explained by the methodology that was used to create the picture itself. Uh, and so, I mean, I like using this methodology. I'm just not going to run around the country and look for freaking parts and run around until I see something that looks like a Bowman. I think all the easy ones have been, all of the, oh, that looks exactly like that, so this has got to be the place. Stuff has already been done. I think that stuff's already been done. I just don't think there's much room for those little things like that. Um, in other words, the low-hanging fruit's already been plucked from the secret. Uh, Not to diminish the efforts of the people that used a construction crew and their bulldozers to luckily unearth something near a home plate uh, in Copp's Hill, next to a burying ground for Africans. Uh, I, not to diminish their efforts or to diminish the efforts of the people in Cleveland who kind of knew somebody who knew somebody of John Palancar and got interested in it, thought it was in Philadelphia for the longest time. And suddenly, when this book was relaunched, uh, owned by another publishing company after bankruptcy by Byron Priess, suddenly at about the time they put this book out again, the guys in Cleveland, after 7 years of looking for it in Philadelphia, decided to, on a whim, go look for it in the Cultural Gardens. And there's a lot of notes in the jacket type of stuff that Cloak and Dagger happened, and the discovery of that one that they don't ever talk about. Uh, and so, was that one really found? Yeah, it was actually found, but what it was found by somebody that had been into this for a long time. Uh, so, but yeah, I mean, I intend to go find the one in Houston because I know exactly where it's at. It's in Herman Park, or it's near Herman Park. And for the people that ever catch this show, they'll know what I mean by Herman Park because they've been fucking with you for years. And I don't know how much money I have to put in the coffee can, the Maxwell coffee swear jar that's sitting in the image with the guy that looks like Ernest Borgnine. Uh, I don't know. So that's where I leave the secret. Tomorrow I got to go do some things for my brother today. I got to go deliver a rent check to a couple people. So I got to run out. It's only 30 degrees. Lots of snow on the ground. We're not going to be digging anytime soon. But tomorrow I will go through my solve because I want to get this done this week. I don't want to linger another week. I'll go through my solve and now that I found the Valkyrie, I'm actually going to, what I hope to do tomorrow is talk about how they put together the tribute puzzle based upon the incorrect information that they were working with. John Michaels and whoever he was working with. That's what I'm going to do tomorrow. Because now I've actually found where they got the reference for the Valkyrie. They got it from Florida and the community there that's next to Sands Park or Sand Point, excuse me. And they're fucking with you. There's absolutely no way you can put this book together the way it's put together without the people who are still alive that were involved in this project having information that could be of help. There's just no way. There's no way. And one of the primary authors is dead now. And the other ones went on to a Hollywood writing career. You're not going to hear anything about the depravity he put into this. He would rather forget about the time he spent at National Lampoon, more than likely. Except when there's a reunion of the National Lampoon show and the writers, and then he'll say something. Or when maybe somebody dies that he worked with, then he'll say something. Palancar, he doesn't want to say anything because he sells his art to the elite in Hollywood. It'd be disappointing for somebody to have bought a painting and the artist had put in the done this work. But none of the stuff he really put together in the book is the gory stuff. It's more the pulling on the pantyhose. It's more the illustration of the pantyhose over the stop sign. Um, that and the writing. That's more where all this stuff shows up. So hey, could you go find a museum, a military museum, and put old Mr. Green Jeans on a cannon for me? Sure, no problem. I can do that. I'll run out here real quick and put that doll on there and take a picture. Okay. Well, unfortunately, Cher hadn't straddled maybe Cher had straddled the Navy destroyer rocket at this time, or cannon or whatever. Maybe Cher had already straddled that. But anyway, I'd be looking at Cher if I saw that picture. If I saw this picture of somebody who straddled a military, let's just say cannon, I'd probably go look at Cher, see what she has to tell for the story, because she did that in the song "If I Could Turn Back Time" in her video. All right, folks. I think I've said enough. But yeah, I will. If I don't go and cover the one that I know where it's at, if I don't actually go get it, I'll tell people where it's at. And none of these people will confirm it. They won't say, yeah, you're right. It all makes sense. Nobody wants to confirm anybody's ideas other than George Ward and the people that are following the 12 treasures. Nobody wants to look at new ideas. And I don't know why. In this series, I've pretty much shown that the quote that they've been using for this first in flight idea, came from Winston Churchill, and it refers to self-determination. And in the verse where it's actually used, it says the word determination. I've already shown that you can use the May 1913 Kitty Hawk flight and expound upon it to a 1980s more and a 1969 flight, how it's more important to the back of the book and Werner von Browning and the rocketry stories, how it's more relevant to the book than anything at Kitty Hawk and the Wright brothers and Octave Chanute, whose name's not capitalized, by the way. So I don't know why these people don't want to listen to reason and say, yeah, you know what? I've told people that I'm pretty sure it's in, White Point. Well, it is. It's in a white sandy point called Sand Point with white beaches. So when they say, yeah, I think White Point's probably right, they're not lying to you. They're just not telling you all the truth. Forrest Penn used to say that. It's best to tell the truth, but not all the truth. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining in. Hope you all have a great day. I got to go run some errands. Thanks for your patience. Have a good day. So long, Jeff, Amy, anybody else that's here? Oh, you want me to look at, Amy, you want me to look at page 52? I'll look at page 52. I think that's what you want me to look at. Let me do that. Oh, well, page 52 has some different verses in it. Yeah, page 52, I'm going to go view the 3 stories of Mitchell, and I'm going to walk to the beating of the world. I'm going to be at a distance of time from 3 who live there, and at a distance in space from a woman with a harpsichord silently playing. A woman with a harpsichord silently playing means that she doesn't have the string to be plucked, or she doesn't have the pin to pluck. Because a harpsichord requires, unlike a piano that has a hammer that hits it has actually a plucking mechanism or a pen. So the you're talking about some sort of pen when you're talking about a woman with a harpsichord silently playing. You can also refer this to Mamie Eisenhower, because Mamie Eisenhower famously played the harpsichord. You're going to step on nature, and it's going to be cast in copper. I know a lot of things that are cast in copper. You could climb 200 and then pass the compass to reach the foot of the culvert. So really, you just have to go to the foot of the culvert and start. And then I'm going to take 100 paces southeast over some rock and soil to a young birch. I'm going to pass 3 more, and I'm going to stay west. Then I'm going to see a letter from the country of Wonderstone's heart. I'm going to see that, okay? And then on a proud, tall fifth at its southern foot, I'm going to see the treasure. It's going to wait. I am going to do that. Oh my God, I remind you of a professor I once had. And if you want to look at page 52, and so at the stone wall's door, this is the Lemp Mansion in St. Louis. The air smells sweet. Okay, she was known as the Lavender Lady. She actually had artists take lavender perfume and infuse it into the paintings that were in her house. And back in 1980, this wasn't too long after, the smell of lavender still was in the thing. The high posts are 3. Okay, there's 3 posts that hold up the swing set in the park. Education and justice for all to see. Okay, so there is a church building that, or a building that teaches law. Running north, but first across in Jules' direction, is an object of Twain's attention. This is just basically, Mark Twain started out on a steamboat. So, on the river. And this is right next to the river that Mark Twain started out on, if you will. Okay. Hannibal, Missouri, south, St. Louis. Okay. All right. Now there's a giant pole and then a giant step. Well, when you need a giant step, you limp. Okay. And the Limp Brewery still has this really tall mansion. In the place the cask is kept. All right. The giant step is also required in order to get yourself started on a swing. So, like when you start swinging in a little swing, you usually had to take one giant step, pushing off. You took one giant step, pushing off, in order to get going on the swing. And then you started pushing your feet up into the air, and then you started pulling yourself back. Your feet in the air, pulling yourself back. Foot in the air, pulling yourself back. Okay, why do I say this? In the image, for the image with the grandfather clock. So in the image for the grandfather clock, you have the lavender lady in the background. You have the limp baby, which was born with Down syndrome. You have no pendulum on the clock, because this guy becomes the pendulum on the clock. And then the guy that's holding on in the detail is swinging back and forth. He's swinging. There's no pendulum. What's missing from the clock? The pendulum is missing. So this image is all about somebody swinging. Where are you going to find some a place where you can easily put in a item in the ground and nobody notice it. It's in a swing set location. And so I think you take the pendulum that's missing from the grandfather clock, you take the baby that's the monkey-faced boy, and if you've ever seen a picture of the casks in the book, you can see a monkey face on one of these on the picture of the actual cask in the book. I don't know what page that's on. But anyway, where's the cask at? They should. I'm pretty sure. On that one of these casks that was found had a monkey's face on it, and it might have been a picture of one of them that was found. It might not be in the book, but one of them that was found had the clock with the monkey face on it. Okay, I gotta go. You remind me of a professor. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Go get it. Yeah, go get the asterisk. I'm ready to go get it. I was gonna go get Forrest Fenn's treasure, but I think they fucked me on that. I don't know how. I'm not sure how big a swear jar I have for the secret right now. If I had, here's the next. If I ever did another Forrest Fenn show, I would probably use this line. If I had every dollar, if I had $1 for everybody that said "screw you, Forrest Fenn," I'd have more money than the treasure. Anyway, all right. I should cut that out, but I don't cut these videos. All right, good night. Gotta go.